It's August 1st, 2019. This is Jake with Radio Underland coming at you with the daily news, which is much different from when I do it on our Tuesday night show. When I do the news on the daily news, usually I'm sober because it's still early in the morning. You know, Missy was telling me the other day, she said, you know, you talk about alcohol way too much on the big show on Tuesdays, and it just makes everybody think you're a raging alcoholic. And, you know, I'm not really, I only drink socially. The problem is I'm pretty social. But usually at home during the week and everything, I don't drink at all. I just don't. Just on Tuesdays and, you know, on the weekends when I'm hanging out with friends. That's normal, right? I don't have a problem. No 12-step program needed. Nothing like that. Anyways, this is the Radio Underland News Show where we tackle the boring news every day, and I try not to give my opinion, but sometimes the stories are so stupid I can't help it. If you'd like to help support this show and anything that we do, you can do that at patreon.com/Radio Underland. Your support is greatly appreciated. I did upload yesterday a Shut Up Sean, a 14 minutes of Shut Up Sean just doing what he does, whether you're a fan, whether you're not. It's either people either hate Shut Up Sean or they love him. But we edited together about 14 minutes of his stand-up from the Tuesday night show. You can check that out on YouTube. Tuesday's night show was called Aggressive Freestyle, and that's our last big show. You can definitely check that out anywhere that you listen to podcasts, wherever you're hearing this. If you want to see the video of it, the live, I guess you could say, performance, you can find that on YouTube. So other than that, I think it's time for me to actually hit the news and see what's going on in the world around us. You guys see that girl in Wisconsin that bought Pantene Pro V conditioner from Walmart? And she's claiming, allegedly, that somebody put Nair hair removal in her conditioner. And the daughter goes in, takes a shower, and clumps of hair start falling out all over the place. I don't know if I buy this story. I mean, okay, so what they're saying, let me read the story for what it is, and then you guys can determine what you think. In New Richmond, Wisconsin, in a very, very traumatic experience, a Wisconsin woman's hair fell out in clumps after Nair hair removal cream was mixed in her conditioner, at least according to her mother. Ashley Rose of New Richmond, Wisconsin, had bought Pantene Pro V sheer volume conditioner at her local Walmart last week. Now, this is the mom talking. My daughter, Ashley Rose, bought some 2 days ago, and someone mixed Nair in her conditioner bottle. Her mother... Now, get this name. Her mother, Taffy Jo Tim, wrote in a Facebook post, "As I speak, she is losing hair and crying." And here's the actual post from Taffy Jo Tim. "I am stressed to the max, as is everyone else, with the rude comments and private messages. Thank you to those with the positive comments of love and support. Attention, New Richmond, Wisconsin Walmart shoppers. Be aware of shampoo and conditioner you buy there, as my daughter, Ashley Rose, bought some 2 days ago, and someone mixed Nair in her conditioner." Now, of course, the police are saying that they're investigating it. They're looking at all the cameras in the Walmart, etc. Yeah, first off, how are they so certain it was Nair in the product? That's kind of Nair does have a very distinctive smell to it. So maybe just the smell, but then if you smelt your conditioner and it smelled like Nair, why would you put it in your hair to begin with? If it smelt that off? I don't know. Is this just a money grab? You know, potentially it could be. It could be somebody saying that, you know, it could be somebody putting Nair in their own conditioner, losing some hair, going viral with it all over Facebook, and then suing and trying to get some money. I mean, that's always a possibility. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but it's definitely something that could happen, especially in today's society where people are so desperate to sue over anything. Just, I don't know, man. You know, it seems like, and why are they going after the Walmart specifically? How come they're not calling out Pantene Pro V? Like they're so confident that it's Nair that was mixed in with this. What if it was a chemical problem straight from Pantene Pro V? You know what I mean? What if something got added in there and there's a whole batch of bad hair conditioner? I mean, I doubt that would happen, but it seems very odd to me that they're specifically going after Walmart right from the get-go, and they're specifically claiming that it's Nair that was mixed with the conditioner. I don't know. It smells fishy. I don't know if we'll ever hear whatever happens with the story, but, you know, can you tell if your container's been tampered with when it comes to something like hair conditioner at Walmart? You know, I don't know if they have. I don't think you can. You know, I think it's just the pump bottles that twist down and lock, and then you unlock it and start pumping conditioner. I don't think there's any, you know, type of a safety seal or anything like that. But just to be cautious, make sure if you buy any conditioner from Walmart that you check the seal on it, if there is one, but I really don't think there is. So I don't know. That's up to you guys to draw your own conclusions with that, but just be careful. But the thing is if this is really somebody that was messing with the conditioner at Walmart, it goes in the same vein of the people that are putting their nutsack and ice cream and all those other kind of people that are messing with food. The potato pisser that we talked about yesterday, the chick pissing on potatoes, just people fucking with other people for no goddamn reason. I guess it's the world that we live in. So anyways, let me get back to some more serious news, but watch your hair conditioner. Now, there's two stories that are floating around on the internet right now. One comes from China, and that is a worker. And both of these stories, they revolve around the same thing, drunk workers showing up to do their job. The first one was a man in China at a Chinese water park, and he decided to mess around with the water system and turned the wave pool up to 11. Max force. Because, what it is there's big, large tanks of water at these wave pools. And, they fill up and they release a surge. They release surges and surges. And so, there's enough water to create multiple waves. If you've ever been in a wave pool, there's a session of waves and it lasts for, what is it? Like, a minute, maybe 2 minutes of continuous waves. Well, that's all water that's being released. Well, this drunk guy shows up to work and he decides to crank it up to 11 and then release all the water at one time to create one giant tidal wave. Now, if you've ever seen pictures of Chinese water parks, these things are just jammed full of people. So this guy shows up drunk, flips the switch, releases a big old tidal wave that just sends people in a panic. I don't think anybody was hurt. I didn't see that anybody was hurt, so that's why I feel at liberty to laugh about it. But a drunk worker turning the wave pool up to 11 over in China. Now, the other story of a worker showing up to work is intoxicated is a little more nerve-rattling. Now, when you start thinking about, occupations where somebody should not be allowed to operate and do their job drunk at all, which is most occupations. But when it comes to deal with you personally, there's some occupations that, like you don't want your heart surgeon showing up drunk to do heart surgery on you. That would be just a ultimate no-no. Or your Uber driver. Well, here's a story about a guy that kind of fits in between the Uber driver and the heart surgeon. A Delta Airlines pilot showed up intoxicated to work. Now, luckily, it looks like they caught him before he actually got behind the stick of the plane. What happened was he was coming through the screening, and sometimes they take the pilots and the crews and they pull them off for additional screening, and I'm not too sure what kind of test they do, but they were in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and he was supposed to be piloting a flight from Minneapolis to San Diego. And they pulled the flight crew aside for additional screening. And apparently this pilot tried to jump out of the line and go around, which airport security noticed that. And the airport police, made him go back through the screening. And apparently they did 2 toxicology reports on the guy, I guess breathalyzer or something, and apparently he was intoxicated. Now, this was on a Delta Airlines flight. Delta Airlines has a policy of no drinking while you're working, and this pilot, he is 37 years old, and apparently he was intoxicated, and also apparently he had a bottle of liquor in his flight bag that he was ready to, maybe have a little happy cheers in the cockpit. But that's one job definitely where you do not want to see the person that has your life in their hands intoxicated, and that is definitely a pilot. But luckily, they caught him before he boarded the plane. But the funny thing is they only caught him because he was going through this additional screening. I'm sure this guy has probably flown many times before, and where he doesn't have to go through the additional screening. And has this pilot been flying drunk? Now, that's just a speculation, but I bet you anything this guy has. 37 years old, goes to the bar in between flights, pounds a couple shots, goes back to work. I don't know, man. Be careful out there. Be careful. Now, in a story that is very almost Final Destination-ish, I can say that. What are the chances of somebody being involved in 2 mass shootings? Well, for Alicia Olive, she escaped the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history, only to have to run for her life again. And these are within 2 years of each other. What happened originally, she was at the Las Vegas shooting at that concert where, the most deadly shooting that's ever happened on America's soil. Well, this past weekend, she was also at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. And she says, "Oh man, this is not happening again." That's what Olive said. She recalls thinking during Sunday's terrifying event. Olive lived through the October 1st, 2017 massacre at Las Vegas Route 91 Music Festival. And she ended up in the shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Now, I don't know if that's just an extremely, extremely horrible case of bad luck, but I'll tell you what, for me, man, it's got to be hard for her. I've had friends that were at the Las Vegas shooting, and it was very difficult for them to get back into big public situations with big crowds and everything like that. I mean, it's a very traumatic experience. And for Alicia to go through this twice, that seems incredible. I mean, that's enough to really mess you up for life. She said in the article that she's had problems being around big crowds. It's been very difficult for her. And then, here you finally step out to live a normal life, and bam, you're in another shooting situation. Now, that is just an incredible story. Incredibly unfortunate bad luck for Alicia Olive. But man, the coincidence, it really is like Final Destination. Like she's got would you hang out with this person? It's like if Alicia's going to a concert, you're going to go with Alicia after she's already been involved in 2 mass shootings. I'm not a person that is necessarily superstitious, but even that, when it's happened twice, I might say, Alicia, I'm busy that night. I know you have tickets to the Rolling Stones, and that sounds really cool and everything, but I'm getting a pedicure that night, and I really can't go. I mean, I'm not superstitious, but in this rare instance of something this extreme, I'm staying away from Alicia. Too bad for her. Sucks to be her. I mean, she's definitely scarred for life, but yeah, I'm just going to pass on that. But the one thing that is the kicker that pushes this story over the top is that she was a member of a Las Vegas shooting survivors group. Okay, so they have this support group. And she was talking to these 2 other girls that were in the support group with her, and they decided together to go to this Gilroy Garlic Festival. So not only was she the only one, the 2 friends from her survivor group also were involved in a second mass shooting. So it's crazy. It is crazy. Well, in San Diego, which has some very expensive housing, there's a landlord down there that is offering another option if you don't have the money to pay for your rent. Apparently, this landlord offers sex for rent, and he harasses female tenants. At least 6 San Diego County women claim they had to endure unwanted touching, crude comments, or persistent requests for sex from a Spring Valley landlord. Federal prosecutors believe the landlord preyed on the disadvantaged and vulnerable female victims. And I quote, "He would try to get me on his couch and push me on his couch with force." That's the claims of one alleged victim, and they told that to NBC7, who was investigating this. They also said, "I was so scared because I didn't know where to go or where to take my kids." The Assistant U.S. Attorney, Leslie Gardner, said that having ownership of a property and being their landlord is not a license to exploit these vulnerable women for sex. Leslie Gardner also said, "Your home is supposed to be a place of safety." In June, there was a civil complaint that was filed in San Diego federal court, and 10 of the specific acts of unlawful sexual discrimination. Some of these acts included offering females tenants tangible benefits in exchange for sexual favors. They also claimed that he was touching tenants without their consent, and that he would also, if he didn't get his way, he would retaliate against the tenants who refused his sexual advances by doing things such as evicting or threatening to evict them. Along with some of this alleged behavior, 2 of the females that are joined in on this civil lawsuit are asking for restraining orders against this gentleman, which gentleman is that's very loosely used in this situation. But the guy is just basically just a scumbag. Now, of course, Nelson Mack, that's the guy's name, he has not responded to the civil lawsuit that's been filed. But these are allegations. They could be true. Here's the thing about court. Now, this story sounds horrible. It really does. It sounds insanely horrible. But the thing you have to remember is these are allegations in a civil case. And reality is that anybody can claim anything in filing a lawsuit. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Now, the fact that there's multiple females involved in this that are filing this lawsuit together, that makes me put a little bit more weight behind it, because obviously there's, 5 or 6 or 7 females that are having the same story about this guy. So there's probably definitely some truth to their claims. But like I said, these are just claims, allegations in a civil filing in federal court. But if it is true, I'll tell you what, this guy is a complete and utter piece of shit. But court cases like this, a lot of times these suits are filed like this, and it never even sees the light of day of a courtroom for us to ever figure out what the truth was behind the story. A lot of times, these civil cases cost so much to fight in court that usually a settlement is drawn outside of the courtroom, and usually there's non-disclosure agreements, etc., and we never even hear the final outcome. But this does ring very similar to another case that I was just reading about, and this was a landlord in Bakersfield. And that particular case, similar circumstances, and what happened was the federal prosecutors went after this Bakersfield landlord, and he was also the target of a civil suit, but that case was settled out of court, and I believe they paid $2 million to settle the legal action. Most of that money went to the 25 women identified as his victims, and that landlord also agreed to hire an independent manager for his apartments and to limit his contact with female tenants. But that's another very similar case that just happened and wrapped up in Bakersfield, California, where they did settle out of court for $2 million. Well, if you're a California sex worker, things are looking up. A new legislation was passed, and it is called, let me see if I can find the number on that, but it is Senate Bill 233. And what that does is it makes it that sex workers, prostitutes, etc., can report crimes without being harassed about being a sex worker. And also it changes things where previously sex workers, one of the pieces of evidence that would be used against them would be them having condoms. Condoms would be the evidence to prove that they're a sex worker, and that can no longer happen. Basically what it is, let me read the story. A new California law would protect sex workers from arrest if they report crimes or are caught with condoms. Democratic Senator Scott Wiener, I'm not making this up, Scott Wiener of San Francisco said his legislation is the first in the nation to provide such health and safety precautions. Governor Gavin Newsom signed the measure into law on Tuesday, but SB 233 will take effect in January. And it protects workers from arrest for misdemeanor-level sex-related crimes if they report that they are victims or witnesses to serious or violent felonies such as rape. It also bars police and prosecutors from using condoms as evidence that the person is engaged in sex work. Wiener said the current law deters sex workers from reporting crimes or protecting themselves from sexually transmitted diseases. See, what was happening is these prostitutes weren't walking around with condoms because they didn't want to be accused of being a sex worker if they were, found with condoms. So they were having unprotected sex and harming themselves and others. Whether you agree with this, whether you don't, I don't even know what my opinion is on this, but that is a new law that's going into effect in January, SB 233. Texas Congressman Chip Roy says the Rio Grande Valley border sector has set an annual record for apprehensions, passing 301,000 over the last 10 months. It's an all-time high for that area, which brings up a question. Trump keeps bragging that there's been less deportations under his ruling, king, whatever, dictator rule, under his ruling than the Obama administration. But, is it are there less deportations because the borders are more secure and they're stopping more people at the borders? You understand what I'm saying? If this is a new record that in one area of the border, they've stopped 301,000 over the last 10 months, that means that there's less people getting in through that border crossing area. So if Trump's deportation numbers are down, is it simply due to the fact that less people are making it in? I don't know. But that's a good question, and it's a good conversation. Two skydivers participating in a Chicago area skydiving festival collided midair Tuesday, and that left one unconscious. CBS Chicago reported that an automated parachute that measures descent, speed, and altitude was triggered, saving the man's life. Both men are reportedly experienced skydivers. When a case of Ebola was detected in the city center of Goma, Congo, aid workers rushed to contain it, but now a second case has been identified because there's been a big Ebola breakout over in the Congo. The victim was a man who works as a miner in an area heavily afflicted with Ebola. He died early Wednesday. The Federal Reserve shaved 1/4 of a percentage point off the interest rate Wednesday, the first reduction since 2008. The Dow lost 470 points on the news and ended the day 300 points down. It seems like at least a couple times a year, we get a story of a really bad, horrible bank robber that does a really crappy job. Well, I've got one for you today. Michael Harrell is a bad bank robber. On Monday, he allegedly handed a teller a note demanding cash. But the problem is that he wrote it on the back of a letter from the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles that included his name and address. The teller handed over the cash after seeing his name, then called the cops. He is still on the run. American Geriatrics Society has released a study indicating that 10% of people, that's 1 out of 10, 64 years and older, binge drink. Now, I thought this was kind of high, how they classify binge drinking. The study defined binging as 5 or more drinks within 2 hours for men and 4 drinks during 2 hours for women. Now, 5 drinks over 2 hours, that seems like a lot of... That's pounding them back. That's getting on. You're ready to rock and roll. But so you mean to tell me that 1 out of 10 people over 64 years old roll up into the bar and just slam 5 drinks in 2 hours? Well, according to this study, or whoever they surveyed, that's what they're saying. But something seems outrageous with that. I find that hard to believe. NBC News has unconfirmed reports that Hamza bin Laden has died. He's the 30-year-old son of Osama bin Laden. Correspondence collected during the raid in Abbottabad that killed bin Laden in 2011 suggested that Osama was grooming Hamza to take over al-Qaeda. And this is worth noting that a $1 million bounty was issued for Hamza's capture by the U.S. government earlier this year. One New York State assemblyman has introduced legislation. Now, that doesn't mean it's a law yet. He's just introducing this. It's a proposal to be a law. Now, he has introduced legislation that would make disrespecting police officers a felony. Yeah, this guy's really trying to propose this. The bill comes on yet another video going viral depicting Queens area thugs dumping water on police. See, I'm already going to nickname this the Cartman Law, the respect my authority, the respect my authority law, because this is the stupidest piece of shit legislation I've ever seen proposed. You mean you're actually trying to pass a law in New York that if you just disrespect a police officer, it is a felony? Get the fuck out of here. It's these kind of assholes, these kind of politicians that you need to run and vote and get them the fuck out of office. Really? We're going to give police even more power, make them some above a normal person, give them extra rights just because you're a police officer, that you cannot be disrespected when you go around disrespecting people left and right all the time. I'm not saying all cops, but there's a lot that do. And you're going to give them, you're proposing to give them a law to give them the benefit if somebody disrespects them, that it's a felony. Whoever proposed this, because the name isn't listed here, it just says a New York State assemblyman, but this guy is off of his fucking rocker. This is just the most outrageous attempt at bullshit that I've seen in a long time. Yeah, whoever that guy is, maybe I'll look into it and I'll find him on the next news show. But that guy needs to be voted the fuck out of office because he's a fucking nutbag. Well, 2 rounds of protest interrupted the Democratic debate. In one protest, a group of 5 jeered New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, demanding that he fire the cop allegedly responsible for the death of Eric Gardner, who died in a police chokehold. The other protest kept Joe Biden from speaking for at least half a minute. That group was yelling at Biden to stop all deportations of illegal aliens. Well, the Drudge Report released an Insta poll after the debate last night, and it found an overwhelming majority thought Tulsi Gabbard won the show. 40% said she won in the decidedly unscientific poll. It also states that the biggest loser of the night was Kamala Harris. A new poll is out regarding college students, and it finds that less than half of them think the U.S. is the world's strongest nation. About 30% of the students think China is in fact the world's superpower. Only 48% accurately said the U.S. is the most powerful country in the world. The survey polled more than 27,000 college students, some of whom should think about asking for a refund because they're dumb fucks. Now for a story where, actors and actresses shouldn't be looked at for their opinion because they're just dumb idiots. Well, I've got one for you from Machine Gun Kelly. Machine Gun Kelly wants to send a message to Sweden about the mistreatment of A$AP Rocky. The rapper told TMZ the whole thing is messed up. And until Rocky is freed, he thinks there should be a boycott on Swedish fish, the nation's famous, chewy, red fish-shaped candy. But there's just one problem with this. The candy is actually made in Canada, you dumb fuck. Cardi B took to Twitter to apologize, in a roundabout way. She reached out to fans in Indiana on Tuesday night after she had to abruptly cancel her show. She took to Instagram to explain that following rehearsal and in the middle of her doing her makeup, there was a security threat, and for the safety of everyone, the show needed to be canceled. She assured her fans that all was not lost and the concert would be rescheduled for September 11th. Lisa Marie Presley has signed a $4 million book deal. The daughter of Elvis Presley has plenty to write about, growing up with a rock star dad and being married to pop icon Michael Jackson, the latter of which the New York Post says she will dish on in the book. She is in an amazing situation. To have a father, Elvis Presley, one of the biggest pop icons of the 50s, and then to be married to Michael Jackson, one of the biggest pop icons of the 80s and 90s. I mean, she does have an interesting life, and that would be an interesting book. And according to the New York Times, it says she is going to dish on her marriage to Michael Jackson, which should be very interesting. I'm sure we'll be talking about that when that book finally is released. Well, the enormously plagued Woodstock 50 is no more officially. And it's been up and down. They've had location cancellations. They've had artist cancellations. But it is now official that the Troubled Festival, which was set to kick off in just 2 weeks, has officially been canceled. Organizers told TMZ that they just couldn't recover from setback after setback, which included the artist cancellations and venue location issues. Artists get to keep their fees, however, with organizers asking that they donate 10% to charity. So somebody lost a lot of money on that event, especially if the artists are keeping their fees. I mean, I'm sure contractually, 2 weeks out, the artists are entitled to keep some amount of their fees, at least a very large percentage. I mean, when you're signing a contract with an artist, you just can't cancel out 2 weeks before the event. Well, we've all heard these stories about Kanye West wanting to build homes for the less fortunate. Well, he is in the process of doing that. He is building in the hills of Calabasas. Sources close to the rapper tell TMZ that Kanye is building dome-like structures that are prototypes for a new type of home that he believes will break the barriers that separate the rich, middle class, and poor. The project sits on a chunk of land that the rapper purchased a while back, totaling 300 acres. And that's where I'm going to wrap it up for today, for today's news. This has been Jake from Radio Underland doing the boring, stupid news. And if you'd like to check out our real show, The Big Show, which which airs live on Tuesdays at 8 p.m., you can check that at facebook.com/Radio Underland. You can also listen to the podcast. The last episode was called Aggressive Freestyle, and that's available everywhere. If you'd like to help support us and support what we do here, you can do that at patreon.com/Radio Underland. If you'd like to get more involved in the conversation about some of these news stories, you can definitely join our Facebook group, which is Radio Underland /news group, Radio Underland -news group. Like our page, join that group, talk about the news, get involved. And other than that, I will see you tomorrow. Take it easy. Bye-bye.